Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Big Nickel IDP podcast. I'm your host, Jon Macri, fantasy analyst at PFF. Thank you all for coming back for another episode. We've come a long way, but we're officially reaching the end of rookie season here in June. There aren't many rookie drafts left, but there is still one important piece to cover as far as this podcast is concerned, and that's those damn fine and exciting rookie linebackers that everyone loves so much. And hell, I do too. So let's get it. All right. Yes, we are talking rookie linebackers today, but really, that is just the secondary benefit of this podcast because number one, on what I assume is everyone's list as to why they're tuning in, and the reason I even bothered peeling myself off the couch tonight for this episode is to get to listen to and talk to the one and only Kyle Bellefeuil. KB, how's it hanging, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. And yeah, you're just too kind to me, buddy. I appreciate it.
I already know. I know people are tuning in just for you. They don't really care about linebackers. These episodes do well because it's you, man. That much I can guarantee.
I mean, I appreciate. I'd love to agree. I'm not sure, but I'll take it. It's been a long few weeks here, so I'll take it. But no, I appreciate it, man.
Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming back, and yeah, talking linebackers. It wasn't the most exciting draft for linebackers. Like last year was okay, but I feel like as the years have kind of progressed, we haven't really got like a bunch of juicy landing spots. We've got some okay ones in here. But I feel like for the most part, we're kind of waiting out a lot of these guys. I don't know how many you saw differently, but that's kind of the general feel that I think for this year anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I think we should give all the listeners a warning. They're going to hear the word patience probably a lot. Right. I figured.
Yeah.
I know, I think last year, the post draft was temper expectations. So maybe this year we'll just transition to patience.
Yeah. Next year it's just going to be forget about it. Just don't even bother.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
As the NFL devalues the position even further, we're just going to be like, don't even worry about it. Don't draft linebackers.
Yeah. It'll be a 4-minute episode.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But it's true. I mean, patience and taxi squad, those are going to be the key words, I think, for if you're doing this as a drinking game, because it's going to be mentioned quite a bit. And I mean, we have the first 10 linebackers drafted as our talking points for this episode, and we'll go over our thoughts on the landing spots and what we expect from them as IDPs and kind of where we're targeting them in rookie drafts, and which ones are bringing their lunch pails to work, ready to grind for fantasy glory, obviously. And, we'll have a couple sleepers in there to throw in the end as well. So, I mean, without further ado, we'll get into it here. So we'll start things off. I mean, there's been a fair bit of talk about this first linebacker taken since the draft wrapped, but I don't think the two of us have really talked about it so much. So I'm kind of looking forward to hearing your take on Jack Campbell taking his lunch pail to Hockeytown and working for his dad, Dan. What did you think about Jack Campbell going to the first to Detroit?
Love that. Yeah. I know in the, the pre-draft episode, we were both pretty, I think we said smitten was the word you used with Campbell. So seeing him get that first round draft capital as 18th overall was, I mean, just super ideal, right? And like you said, he's Dan Campbell's son, so the fit is just perfect. I don't know, did you happen to see my buddy Chris? Shout out to my buddy Chris, is a big Detroit fan. The whole thing with Tampa Bay, and they had the next pick, and they were in on Campbell too, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said
Bucks
they were
in on him.
Yeah. That's what my buddy Chris was telling me. And I Googled it, gave it a quick Goog. And so apparently they were looking at Campbell or Kalijah Kancey. And they said, well, Detroit went linebacker. So we went Kancey. So that was kind of interesting to see that they had that high of a grade on him as well. Because there was the whole question of wow, was Detroit the only team that high? It was kind of my thought was the only team that had that grade on. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point to see that they felt that highly and strongly about him as well. So
yeah. It is. I did not see that.
Yeah, we
It
were
kind of makes sense too, right? Because there were Devin White trade rumors going around.
right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
there is a Tampa Bay linebacker in this episode that we'll talk
Yep.
about that will kind of get into that. But I did not know that they were in on Jack Campbell. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was just they said that was, when Detroit went linebacker, we went KNC type thing, and they were so
Ah,
someone, I didn't see the quote unquote on it exactly. I don't remember what it was. I read it, but yeah, it sounds like they were looking at him pretty hard as well. So, but yeah, so that I thought that was a really cool tidbit too to go along with the first round capital. Is that another team had him, felt that strongly about him. Um, I really like his dynasty, his overall outlook with the pairing of the capital, the fit in Detroit, and the fact that he is Dan Campbell's son, like you said. He's, as we labeled him, the lunch pail king. He's just your classic volume tackling Iowa linebacker who's built for IDPs, showing up with them classic lays, the ham sandwich, Mountain Dew, ready to go to work every day. He's bringing it to the Motor City. I like Campbell's long term dynasty outlook. I mean, honestly, I think he's going to be a viable option in redraft. I'm not, reaching for him because he
right.
is a rookie still, but he should be out there. I don't know how you feel. I think initially it hurts Malcolm Rodriguez the most. With the Prince of Asgard
Hmm.
alone getting the 3 year, it was an $18 million deal. So it looks like Campbell and Anzalone are likely starters. So I think Rodrigo takes the hit. Unfortunately, he's a fan favorite and IDP darling, but not looking great for him in year 2 as things sit. But
Yeah.
and that said, about I really like Campbell's dynasty outlook long term, and the fact that hopefully he's dethroned the Prince of Asgard as the leader of the defense.
Yeah, that's the ultimate hope, right? I mean, if we can, GTFO Alex Anzalone, that would be wonderful. But yeah, I mean, this was our both of our top linebackers
Yeah,
in the pre-draft process, right? So, we really liked it. You nailed the landing spot. You actually called Detroit.
I did, right? I'm
Yeah,
like
because
1 for 30, so
yeah,
nice.
that's not bad. That's
Not
not bad.
bad.
It's
Not
not
bad.
zero. That's
Yeah, it's better than 0, so I'm all
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, it's a good spot to hopefully supplant Alex Anzalone. I mean, friggin' Lions Twitter's actually putting out like Alex Anzalone hype clips already. Somehow, I did not expect this at all, but there's I thought for sure it would just be Jack Campbell hype clips.
Right.
So that's a little concerning, but it is just the Twitter account.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing with Campbell going to Detroit for me, we talked about this pre-draft, but he didn't always showcase like the best man coverage ability during
Mhm.
his time at Iowa, which
Yep.
could create like a slight learning curve, as the Lions were one of the more man-heavy teams in the league last
Yep.
season. But I think the key for Campbell, at least being a successful IDP, just relying on him overcoming a system that on paper isn't one of the more linebacker friendly schemes for tackle efficiency,
Mhm.
but everything that he's shown at Iowa makes him probably the best bet among linebackers in this class to actually be able to overcome the scheme itself. So, I mean, for this year, I have him as LB27 right now. He's the clear rookie LB1 for me, and I think I have him
Mhm.
as IDP2 overall. But LB27 hedging a little bit that Alex Anzalone is probably going to get in there. I have a belief that he'll overcome and eventually lead this group
Right.
in snaps, but it's a risk for sure. So
Yep.
LB27 for me. I mean, and then in rookie drafts, I've seen him going toward the back half of the first round in rookie drafts to the early part of the second round in like one QB league. So I definitely feel more comfortable with him in that kind of 203, 205 range in 12 team leagues. But I understand anyone who has a need for a linebacker and a love for Campbell to target him a bit earlier than that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been seeing a lot of, especially the 1 QBs, like you said, late first
Mhm.
with Campbell, and I think that's solid. And I've seen a couple of early seconds, but I think if you want them, you're going to have to, that late first starts creeping up. You're going to have to start targeting them, and
Yeah.
the super flex changes things a little. It pushes up, the QBs and stuff. But no, I mean, you make a lot of excellent points. Like it is, he is the LB1 of this class. It's the most exciting as far as we're early impact we're projecting, but it is always iffy, right? You don't want to
Mhm.
just necessarily go all in on him and redraft as well and expect 150 tackles right away.
Right.
But he should be a viable option. As you said, you had LB27. I like that a lot. I think that's really a really solid ranking for him. But yeah, and like you said, the scheme as well. He's got to overcome a little bit of a deficiency in man coverage because they do run it. And yeah, I mean, you like to think that with them investing that high of a draft pick and him 18th overall, that they feel they can get him there. So let's hope that happens. And being a liability in coverage will get you off the field. So let's hope.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the hope comes from, right? Like there was hope even last year that Malcolm Rodriguez might supplant Alex Anzalone, and he was a 5th round pick.
Right.
They're spending a 1st round pick on Jack Campbell. We like him a lot. We like what we saw in college. I think he has a decent shot to basically be the LB1 as a rookie, but it's not a guarantee, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
All right, let's go to the next guy drafted. So there was only one linebacker taken in the 1st round and not a single linebacker in the 2nd round. I'm not counting. Actually, Marte Mapu was in the 3rd anyways. Drew Sanders goes to the Denver Broncos, 3rd round pick out of Arkansas. So I think when he was drafted, there were maybe some questions or ambiguity in how the Broncos might want to use Sanders in this defense. And there still could be to a point, but just paying attention to the first bit of like OTA news, it appears that he's working with the off-ball linebackers, and any video I've seen from him like doing drills appears to be linebacker drills as well. So I think that situation is clearing up a little bit right now, because there was talks of him potentially playing maybe more of an edge role to start his career, especially with Josie Jewell and Kingleton established veterans in that typical linebacker role. So the pass rush upside is there for him. We talked about that as well. We highlighted it in the pre-draft pod because of his like history as a former 5-star defensive end. So I think it's possible he gets some like sub package usage in that area, especially considering that he's still relatively inexperienced in a typical linebacker role, which I do think is important to factor in. I really do believe that, experience at the position is one of the more important things to contribute to success at the position. So I'm okay waiting on him before getting too excited about his IDP prospects. Like you say, patience is important here. Josie Jewell is still under contract for this season, and I really like his chances of emerging as a potential top 10 linebacker this year. Obviously, Kingleton's going to find his way to IDP relevancy, even if it isn't a full-time workload. So that's never stopped him before. So I even like him as a top 24 option this year. There's definitely a chance that Sanders can emerge as a starter this year, but I think it's more than likely going to take maybe an injury or just like a ridiculously good offseason for now someone who, I'm probably not targeting in redrafts. But for rookie drafts, he's my LB2, and I'd be looking to target him maybe more in the earlier part of the 3rd round in those 12-team 1 QB leagues.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I'm with you, man. Patience, right? I'm more looking for next year, but I do think there is a chance he makes an impact in maybe a smaller role of some sort. And like you mentioned with Sanders in his, 1 year at off ball, but he was a 5-star defensive end, his pass rush, edge guy, defensive end, whatever you call it. And then the pass rush ability he showed while playing off ball even. And there was some question marks on how is he going to be used in Denver's scheme. And then, like you said, he's working with the linebackers. I know shortly after the draft, Sean Payton said they had envisioned him as playing at inside linebacker. And then he also talked about him being tagged. They're looking at him as a pressure player, as he called it, quote unquote. And then he said, this was a blurb I had read, he said not all linebackers in the system systems he's been with have been tagged pressure players, but he did mention like Demario Davis was that type of linebacker for the Saints. So I thought that was a pretty cool little interesting thing.
Right.
He's not saying not all linebackers are viewed that way by him, but obviously Demario Davis had a lot of success, and as he got older, he got better, which is insane. But so yeah, it's seems like they're going to find ways to maybe sneak Sanders in if he's ready in different spots, like you said, to make an impact, but not looking at him in redraft, but more for 2024. Josie Jewell, excellent player. He's gonna have a nice year. Obviously, we all hope he stays healthy and does his thing. He's in the last year of his contract, so him potentially looking to get paid in free agency could open up a spot for Sanders. They might not want to pay him and see if Sanders is ready for year 2, and so that's more why I'm looking, like we talked about patience here. And then the other thing is, hopefully he can get close to Singleton to get some of that greasy tackle efficiency to wear off on him. So
Yeah.
that would be nice.
That's all we can hope for, is just
Yeah.
a sliver of what Alex
just a
Singleton's
little bit.
able to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that call about Demario Davis. I hadn't thought about that, utilizing him in that kind of way in Sean Payton's defense, but it does make sense, right? Demario
Right.
Davis, this is a guy who was getting like 3-4 sacks a year in that Saints defense and racking up, 120 tackles or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great role for Sanders if he can emerge there at maybe not this year, but
right,
or at least maybe in a smaller version of that this year, but emerge full time potentially next year would be cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I like the early third call. Yeah, it's a
Early
nice
third,
spot
yeah.
for him. Yeah. As far as rookie drafts, I mean, if you want to, if you're high on Sanders and you really want, he's my LB2 as well.
Right.
I mean, if you're really in on him, you want to try to sneak in the late second. If you're kind of ho-humming at the offensive options, but yeah, the early third's pretty good time to start looking at him. I think.
Yeah.
Too. Good call.
Yeah, I've seen him go late second. It's not a crazy reach, but yeah, it just more where I'm comfortable taking him. Obviously, is that early kind of third pick. All right, let's go to another third round pick out of Washington State. What did you think about Diane Henley going to the Chargers?
Yeah, Henley, from the right after the season, when I started digging into the tape, Henley was by far the biggest riser for me, as most of draft is the draft community and analysts and stuff. Like, Henley was a constant name that was rising amongst this linebacker group. So I was really anxious to see where he landed. I know PFF had him rated as number 1, right? I believe, as when it was all said and done for the draft. So I was really excited to see where Henley went, and I like this. I like this spot for him, but I think it's going to require some patience as well. We're going to use that word a lot. If you're drinking at home, I mean, you're gonna have a buzz by the time you're done. Yeah, I like the long-term potential. You want to have to wait. It's the biggest investment Brandon Staley has made at linebacker since he's been there, because Kenneth Murray was a holdover from the previous regime. Murray's been, disappointing during his time there. That's nothing new. It's well documented. They declined his 5th-year option, so he's likely a goner. They brought in Kendricks, Eric Kendricks. Kendricks is 31. He signed a 2-year deal. He's got an out after year 1. Most of those types of deals do. So, Kendrick should run the show this year. I think Henley has a chance to definitely eat into Murray snaps if he shows he's ready to, play significant snaps for the defense, because Murray just, he's fallen out of favor there. But I'm not necessarily putting that in pen yet because it's early. But I like his chances to get on the field. But I think there's, a big opportunity for him in year 2, especially if they do move on from Kendricks with the out and they look to Henley to be the guy. It's a nice role for IDP production, and he's got the skill set of the, modern day LB for what you look for. It's just, he's a position convert with some things to clean up, and, learn from Eric Kendricks is pretty solid. Solid bet to learn from. His plays decline now, but he's, he's getting up there in age, but he's been a really solid IDP asset and NFL player for his career. So I like the landing spot for Henley. As far as dynasty redraft, if you have a deep bench and you want to take him late or something, okay. But and so I'm looking at Henley in that early 3rd range, like Sanders. I mean, I got them right next to each other, so it's a kind of a tier here as we go.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's where I have him as well. He's early 3rd. I think is a fair spot. But yeah, this was one, where the first kind of real movement for me comes from pre-draft to post-draft rankings. And he was LB5 for me pre-draft, and now he's LB3 for me here post-draft. And not just because of the order he was drafted in, but because I really like his potential, like you said, to emerge in this defense. But also because I was apparently way too high on Ivan Pace, even though I think the NFL is actually way too low, the stupid dumb idiots that they are.
Yeah, way too low.
Yeah.
It's
Anyways,
absurd.
yeah. I don't think, yeah, like you said, he's not necessarily coming for Eric Kendrick's role this season, but
Yeah.
Kenneth Murray, that's the
Mhm.
target for him. He's proved on multiple occasions now that he wasn't
Yeah.
worthy of the first round draft pick.
Mhm.
And with this being a different coaching regime from the one that drafted Murray, I just think his days are numbered, especially like you said, that the fifth year option being declined. So even if the LB2 role for the Chargers isn't necessarily like a full-time role,
Mhm.
there's a chance that he can become that LB1 over time there, either at the end of Kendrick's contract or if he's ever released, like you said. So there's a decent amount to be excited about with Henley, in my opinion, even if it is an immediate success. So I do like that range for him in the early third. I have him a few spots. I have him in a few spots. I think, as far as Sanders goes, like for this year, I think I have him 12 or 13 spots ahead of Drew Sanders in redraft. That is
Okay.
because I like his chances to play maybe
Yep.
more IDP relevant snaps in 2023 than Sanders. But again, like you said, these are like deep bench guys at
Mhm.
best to start the year. You're not really drafting these guys. It's just kind of for those deeper leagues in 2023, kind of what to expect. But for rookie drafts, early third is a spot that I like for him.
I dig it, man.
All right, let's go to Baltimore. Third round pick out of Clemson. It is Trenton Simpson. So Simpson was LB2 for me pre-draft. He fell a little bit further than expected in the draft, but I'm fairly encouraged by the landing spot, especially if we see the Ravens move on from Patrick Queen, which after declining his fifth year option also kind of seems likely. They also just made Roquan Smith the highest paid linebacker in the league, so I wouldn't blame them if they don't want to also pay like a mid linebacker like Queen now as well. So I think it makes sense investing in Simpson here, especially giving him a year to essentially redshirt behind Roquan and Queen before potentially stepping into a larger role in year two. Um, you know, we talked about a pre-draft, but he adds decent coverage ability. He's a strong blitzer. There's a fair bit to like about him going forward if he can continue to develop in the NFL, because I do think, again, there's patience again, but he'll take a little bit of time at least to really get his legs under him and feel comfortable. Because that was one of the things we talked about pre-draft as well, that there were definitely some warts in college that kind of stood out, right? The biting on play fakes and some
Yeah.
coverage lapses as well. So definitely room for improvement, but really good athlete, can do a lot of good things all over the field as a versatile player. So I like his chances of succeeding at the next level. Another guy that early, maybe to mid third for me in rookie drafts is a good spot, I think, for Trenton Simpson.
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it. Yeah, like you said, once again, patience with these guys with Roquan, obviously the man, and Queen is there. They declined his fifth year option, but he's there and he's gonna have his role, and Simpson's likely gonna have to wait. You know, you'd think that you don't see a world where they go pay Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen's gonna be playing for a contract. They, like you said, they paid Roquan. They just gave Lamar the bag. Um, I don't see them having the money to pay another
Mhm.
linebacker if Queen does play a little better and wants the bag. So it could be a nice spot for Simpson to step up next year to be next to Roquan. And I kind of like that spot for him. Roquan can hold it down and be the leader of the defense, and Simpson can just use that size, athleticism,
Yeah.
and just run and hit. And he does. There are some coverage lapses, but there was some really nice flashes.
Mhm.
Like I said, there was some. So I charted some snaps where he was able to carry the tight end up the seam and turn his head and make a play on the ball. So you see it's
Yeah.
there. So if they can just get that more consistently out of him, I mean, he's got a lot to offer. And you mentioned the blitzing ability. He's the skills are there. It's just the consistency thing. And I think it'd be a nice role if he could slide into that role next year next to Roquan.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the spot next year for Simpson,
Mhm.
but this year, he's pretty roadblocked. It looks
Right.
right now, and I like that early to mid third spot in rookie drafts as well. I mean, like I said, I got a tier here of four guys that are
Right.
gonna be they're gonna go pretty dang close to each other. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I like it. It's a good call, and yeah, he could be on a breakout list next year, but for this year, we'll probably be avoiding him in
Yeah,
most redrafts, anyways.
I like that breakout list, Cocky. That's a pretty going to be a popular.
Oh yeah,
That's a
it's
good
gonna be a
call.
big
Yeah,
one for next
yeah,
year.
yep. Excellent call.
Oh man. All right, let's go to another third round linebacker. DeMarvion Overshown gets drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, a third round pick out of Texas. What did you think about Overshown going to the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, he's a Dallas or a Texas guy, so going to Dallas is pretty
Yeah.
exciting coming from Texas. Yeah, I think I might have been a little bit higher on Overshown. Just kind of, his tape. You see him launching to make tackles and making these exciting plays. There was a lot of highs and lows, so he was a tough eval sometimes. But yeah, the Dallas spot, I've seen reports where Dallas has said they envisioned Overshown as a will linebacker, which makes sense with, his skill set and athleticism. I can't remember who exactly made that statement, but I did read it somewhere, I swear. Um, LVE, they brought him back. He's going to have his spot. He's injury prone. It looks like Damone Clark's probably the leader in the clubhouse for the other spot. As it sits today, it's early. Him and Jabril Cox, are they the biggest hills to climb to relevancy? No. I mean, you do like the fact that Overshown has the day 2 third round draft capital investment, which those guys were round 4 guys. I know Clark had the injury, the neck fusion, I believe, that made him slide. There's people that were higher than him than others, but those Clark and Jabril Cox, not the biggest hills to climb. If Overshown can, improve on some of the things, he's got some warts in his game, as you said, with Simpson as well. So I'm not expecting a ton in year 1, but I do like him. He has a chance in year 2 to find a role should he developed. I think him sitting and learning a bit in year 1 is a good thing, because I think his tape was a lot of highs, a lot of highs and lows, peaks and valleys, as they say, whatever. But he's got the tools to succeed, I think, in the athleticism and coverage potential. And I know Dallas had mentioned they liked his ability in there to be able to turn and run and stuff like that. And he's got the size and length to match up with tight ends and do some things. And so LVE's, he struggles with injury. He held up for him pretty well last year. He's getting a little older, and those other guys aren't necessarily they haven't asserted themselves as big time players yet. And Clark and Cox, could they? Who knows? But I do like Overshown down the road, but this year I'm not expecting much. And I think it might be a good thing for him to just sit and learn and take in the transition to the league and get some finer tuning and stuff. But I do like his ability and the chance, and his ability, athleticism, the chances that it could translate in year 2.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair take for him. I mean, I obviously really like the third round capital for him. Even though I didn't necessarily love him prior to the draft, I think he was like LB8 for me. And so honestly, I have a harder time getting like too excited about him in Dallas right now. And it could change, obviously, depending on his usage. But the Cowboys were not really a great linebacker landing spot as far as I was concerned, and not necessarily because of like real competition for snaps, with it just being pretty much LVE, but just in how they use their linebackers. Their defense is far from ideal for optimal IDP production from that position. The Cowboys under Dan Quinn ranked 23rd as far as being a tackle friendly defense, mostly because of how much man coverages they ran. But the other thing was how often they took their top linebacker off the field last year. LB1 for them averaged just under 84% of the defensive snaps on a weekly basis. So obviously that wasn't great for someone like LVE, who was outside of the top 50 linebackers in points per game in most of my leagues last year. So really not ideal now. And part of that is because they utilize a lot of the 3 safety looks with Jaron Kearse and Donovan Wilson getting work in the box. And they're both back this year along with Malik Hooker. And then you add in, the snaps that they'll put Micah Parsons in that spot on occasion as well. So that LB1 spot kind of sucks for them if it isn't going to be like a top tier linebacker. Then I'm not going to be too excited there. And then, with all that said about the LB1 spot, obviously there's a trickle down effect to whoever wins LB2 role and LB3 after that. You start to like it even less. So, 5 round rookie drafts, he's not typically someone I'm considering, just because I think there are maybe a few better dart throws at other positions to target to close out drafts. So Overshown, to me, he just kind of falls outside of that range. I don't think it's impossible that he could end up being IDP relevant by any means. I just feel that it's on his less likely range of outcomes, at least for year one. Like you said, it could be something more for next year, but even then, it's going to depend on who the defensive coordinator is, who else is in the building, and things like that. So a little bit riskier, I think, for Overshown. But if you want him in round 5, that's not a bad spot. For the most part, I'm trying to wait a little bit until after that range.
No, absolutely. And you made some excellent points with the 3 safeties there. They're all coming back. They're going to have Jaron Kearse and Donovan Wilson and Hooker all on the field, right? And it's like you nailed it. Like there's just it's not a great IDP landing spot. As far as that goes, like you said, snap percent wise and in the way they utilize these guys. And that's, I'm with you, man. He's got some hurdles to overcome. I do like his ability, like I said, and everything. And that he is a different player than LVE and some of these other guys. He's got a little bit more to offer athletically and stuff, but he's got some hurdles to overcome before he is, somebody you're willing to throw in your lineup every week. And I mean, I'm a little more apt to throw a dart on him and throw him my taxi squad as a stash guy in like the late 4th, early 5th. I've done it when these linebackers start going off the board and he's like the last of we're going to talk about another guy where people are excited about here next, but Overshown's kind of the last of the linebackers that you're kind of interested in to, go get if, once Sanders, Simpson, Henley, and, this other guy we're going to talk about here quickly, not to give a spoiler alert, but you make some great points. It's not the greatest landing spot, but I think there's a chance he's at least IDP relevant year 2, but year 1, I don't see it. And I think he's a taxi stash guy that you're just hoping he makes some buzz in camp year 2 and either ride it out or cash out, So
yeah, but you're right. It is there is that kind of like tier of guys, right? And I think you're right. Overshown is in it, and then obviously this next guy here, Dorian Williams, who also was a 3rd round pick, coming out of Tulane, goes to the Buffalo Bills. So I know we both liked Williams in about this range where he was drafted, kind of the middle of this class's linebackers. So. And there's now, I think, a fair bit of excitement that he'll potentially win the starting job next to Milano, which, it's definitely not impossible. But he will have to beat out at least, last year's 3rd rounder, Terrell Bernard, for the job. But I don't think it's just him that he's competing against. Tyrell Dodson, by all accounts from the coaching staff and Bills management, is a big part of this starting job competition. So almost every time last year, if you look at it, that Tremaine Edmonds was out, it was Dodson that filled in because of how the Bills viewed their linebackers and how they classified these guys in their roles. They referred to Edmonds as their Mike linebacker, and he had a direct backup for that role in Tyrell Dodson, where they viewed Milano more as their will linebacker, and Bernard was his direct replacement. And we saw that kind of emerge as a trend when those guys missed time. So there's probably going to be some similar thinking again this season, just based on listening to the coaches, how they refer to these guys. So I think the main thing for figuring out who's starting next to Milano is paying attention to who is the favorite for that Mike role. It's where you'll want to pay attention as of now. It sounds like it's Tyrell Dodson is the favorite in Bill's camp, but Williams and Bernard seem like they're getting a fair shot as well. I mean, even AJ Klein could mix in, given his experience with the team and having started for them as well. So I think it's a little messier than people might believe initially here, with Williams getting picked in the 3rd and not really thinking of Dodson, but it's definitely not impossible for him to emerge. So he's another one of those guys. I think 5th round at best. Depending on the league and scoring, maybe the 4th, but 5th round and later is where I was looking at him. Rookie drafts.
Right on. Yeah. Now you make excellent points, right? Because, we're all waiting to see if Buffalo drafted somebody to replace Tremaine Edmonds, that, the hole at the Mike spot, as you said, that was glaring because Milano's there and he's doing his thing. And, Dorian Williams was a guy that was getting some serious buzz leading up to the draft, as far as his linebacker class goes, because we were looking for guys to generate some buzz, and him and Henley were kind of guys that were making waves.
Yeah.
So,
Green wave.
Green wave. I love it. Man, that's fantastic. Um, yeah, so and then after they drafted him, the GM Brandon Bean initially had said he would initially start as a quote unquote outside linebacker, which was that will spot you're talking about. But then in OTAs they had Williams working in the middle, which is it's early. That middle spot is the Edmund spot, as you said. It's early, and they could just be giving him some looks there just to see how he does. I mean, it's certainly interesting. It's a good thing they're willing to just throw him in there. But yeah, he does have hurdles to overcome, right? With Dotson, who's been there, and you made a great point. Like last year, he was the guy who stepped in to that spot, right? So he's going to beat him out. And Terrell Bernard's not going away. He's been making plays at OTAs and stuff. I know it's early, but he's going to be hungry to try to get some snaps too, man. But yeah, I mean, if he can, he's got a nice skill set. He really does. He was. I know you made some really great points on how he was a little hesitant sometimes on his reads. Right. Didn't always, and I think that's going to be a really big thing to clean up. Right. It's gonna be important that he's a little more aggressive and gets downhill quicker. But I mean, like he's got that athleticism. The size, he's got them really long arms. He can get in passing lanes. He can really affect the game in coverage. He can turn around with guys. So he's got a lot of things going for him, but there is some hurdles to climb for him. AJ Klein can be one of them. I just work that in. Right. But Dotson, Bernard, Klein, those guys will be fighting with them in camp. But if he can, get that spot next to Milano at some point, I mean, it's exciting for IDP as, Buffalo just sits in that nickel, rolls those two LBs out, and, he's on the field, which we love that for IDP. We want those 3 down LBs as the league just transitions to some packages and coverage players getting on the field, as he talked about with Dallas. We went from the Dallas system to this system. It's, this is certainly more ideal with the amount of nickel they play. But I mean, I'm a little more apt to jump at him earlier. Once you see Sanders and Henley and Simpson come off the board, I mean, I've seen Williams go ahead of a couple of those guys in drafts too. I mean, obviously people are going to be like, oh, Buffalo, there's opening, right? Right. You dig a little deeper, there are some hurdles. Like, I think you made some great points there, John, for sure. But yeah, I got him, early 4th. I'm willing to start looking at him like before Overshown. I think Overshown's the last guy for me that, like I was saying, I'm interested in Williams. I'm like, as these guys start going, I'm like, oh, I want him, and if I don't get him, then I'm jumping at Overshown because he's the last guy I really kind of care about. Not to spoil the rest of this. But anyway, it's that's going to be that Buffalo training camp battle and all the news coming out. It's going to be fun to really keep track of how that goes because it's there's a lot of snaps to be had and some productive ones. So these guys are all fighting for them. So it's going to be cool to see how it all works out.
Yeah, for sure. It is. I mean, if you're drafting today, like, you address it the way you would like ambiguous running back situations in those deeper leagues, right? You just take the cheapest guy and hope for the best. But it's one of those ones. Like, if you're doing an IDP best ball or something here, like what the IDP show's doing, you got Dodson, you got Bernard, you got Dorian Williams, whoever the cheapest guy is of that group. I found it's usually been Dodson. That's the guy that I'll just take a shot on late.
Love that. Take the value, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right. So now, like you said, we start to get into the other guys. It's and the rest. We'll call them. It's I don't know how much we should spend on these guys, but we'll talk about them. What did you think of Ventrell Miller going to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 4th round? The only 4th round pick linebacker.
Right. Yeah, he was the only 4th rounder. Hey, wild. This is a bit of a surprise for me. I know that he was the only name on the first 10 we hadn't covered on the pre-draft episode. So I just kind of threw down a few scouting notes I had him. I did watch his tape. I actually watched some of his tape last year too, because he was looking at maybe coming out. But I thought overall he's a pretty smart player with pretty good zone awareness. There's just a couple of the better notes I had. I thought his change of direction kind of hindered him a little bit as far as his play went. So not great there. And he struggled. If he didn't see it and blockers got into his frame, he got washed out as most of these guys do. So those are just a few of the scouting notes I had because I know we didn't cover him pre-draft. But he was okay. I was kind of surprised he went in the 4th round. Not kind of surprised. I was really surprised he went in the 4th round. And somebody that we're a big fan of didn't even get drafted, and this guy goes in the 4th. Shout out Ivan Pace. We'll talk about him at some point. But yeah, I'm not excited about his chances at all to make an impact for IDP when you look at Jacksonville's depth chart. I mean, Foye Oluokun, Devin Lloyd, they invested a first-round pick in last year, and I'm not giving up on Chad Muma yet either. No. So yeah, so I don't see him. He's not passing those guys up. He's Miller he'll be depth and special teams if he wants to contribute. So
yeah, and honestly, I'm glad that you watched some of his tape. I didn't even bother because I just can't find a way to justify him as an IDP asset for 2023 or even for Dynasty at this point. Because, like you said, they gave Foye the bag. They drafted Lloyd in the 1st, followed by Chad Muma in the 3rd. So, I mean, I guess my only question is like, what is Jacksonville's obsession with the linebacker position? I mean, to each his own, but there's probably other valuable positions that could be worth addressing. But what the hell do I know? Not like I'm a all 22 champion or anything. But
hey, dude, you earned it.
yeah, it's gonna be a big part of my resume when I apply for general manager jobs. Is all 22 champion.
Yeah, man. If you need a reference, let me know, man. I'll vote for you.
Sounds good.
I will charge the gates, man.
You just got yourself promoted to assistant GM for that.
Yes.
So I think.
Hell yes. I just want to find out that I probably watched Ventrell Miller tape when my kids were on the 7th or 8th rerun of Bluey. So that's probably, I want to say that's how I ended up watching it. So
yeah, that'll do it, man.
Yeah.
As good as a show as Bluey
it's a great
is,
show.
There's only so much you could take before you're like, all right, that's enough now.
Yeah.
So another guy here, we go into the 5th round. Noah Sewell, the artist formerly known as Noah Sewell, I should say. Rigatoni Sewell goes to the Chicago Bears, the 5th round pick out of Oregon. So Sewell really just continuing to disappoint us here, I guess. From not only not being named Rigatoni Sewell to landing in Chicago, where we've already witnessed the death of Jack Sanborn, thanks to them bringing in TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. So it's just not much of a shot to see the field, barring a few injuries. I mean, I don't even know if Rigatoni is the appropriate name for him anymore, since he's not so much the pasta itself with his backup role, but more like an accoutrement on the pasta, like a piece of basil or something. So I'm probably downgrading him once again to Basilico Sewell, because I can really just take him or leave him at this point. He's not someone I'm drafting because I didn't like the talent enough coming out to really get too excited about him. So the YouTube crowd gets a nice treat there with that delicious bowl of pasta.
Love that.
But yeah, how about you? Any more optimism than me on Sewell?
No, I'm just like you said, continues to disappoint, right?
Yeah.
And I guess my note was as far as draft round or how much I care about him is I'm gonna pass on Rigatoni and I'll wait until Spaghetti Sewell is eligible for the draft. I assume he's the next one to come through.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna pass it, and Spaghetti Sewell will be the guy.
I love it. There's always another pasta coming down.
Yeah,
it's all you can eat pasta here.
Yeah, I'm a big pasta guy. Just
love pasta. Pasta.
Absolutely.
All right, so we don't have to talk about the pasta man anymore. We can move on to Servassier Dennis. So this one may be a little bit more interesting, but another 5th round pick, Servassier Dennis. I remember he was one of your sleepers in the pre-draft episode. He goes to the Buccaneers in the 5th round out of Pitt. What did you think about Servassier to the Bucs?
Yeah, we talked about him a little bit as a sleeper leading up to the draft, and this is a nice spot, I think, as far as I know he's a 5th round pick, but you look at Tampa Bay's roster, Levante David's 97 years old. It's signed a 1-year deal to stay in Tampa. It's you think it's his last ride. Devin White's in the last year, his rookie deal on the 5th-year option, and he had reportedly requested a trade. Not great. You'd think they'd figure that out, but you never know. But even if they do figure that out, you look at Levante David, he's going to be 98 next year if he's 97 this year.
Right.
He's probably not coming back. Their depth chart, they got guys like KJ Britt, and I thought it said Ulysses S. Grant. Shout out former president. It's Ulysses Gilbert. So those guys, I don't know if those are real guys or not. But so there's a chance for Servassier Dennis to, if he can have a nice camp, generate some buzz in this offseason, maybe, really come up as the, top reserve even this year with these guys. You never know. But next year, there's a chance. I mean, it's a 5th round investment's not huge, but I mean, at least you got drafted, right? And in the spot, there is opportunity with David, obviously probably not coming back for another season, and could be a nice spot for him. Granted, if they do make it work with White, but he gets to learn. I think getting to learn from Levante David's a good thing too for him. It could really, he gets a chance to sit there and learn from him, and I think he's worth the stash, and it could pay off next year. And as I mentioned, the other guy, he's a guy, if he starts getting some spicy camp news and everybody's piping him up a little bit, you could ride him out or cash him out, and he could be one of them guys, and you can see at that point what you want to do with him. There's a chance anyway that he's relevant compared to Rigatoni and Ventrell Miller. So
I'm 100% with you. He's one of my favorite kind of sleeper targets now post draft here. Like you said, Devin White requesting the trade. I don't know that they're going to be giving him the contract that he's looking for in Tampa. Levante David, obviously one of the goats of the linebacker position. Dude. I love Levante David.
Me too.
But yeah, like you said, getting up there in age, just a 1-year contract. You feel like he just kind of wants to maybe finish his career up in Tampa Bay. So yeah, even though it's a 5th round pick, there could be opportunity for SirVocea Dennis just based on, like you said, that depth chart being extremely thin. So maybe down the road next year, as soon as next year, there is an opportunity. This is a guy last year who posted the 2nd highest run defense grade in the entire country among linebackers at 92.1. Surprisingly earned a strong 77.5 coverage grade as well, even though he isn't really known for his coverage skill. But Tampa has played Devin White for like 4,000 snaps the last 4 years, so probably not a huge concern of theirs. Also had an excellent 4.9% missed tackle rate last year, which we know from this class was kind of a rarity, just talking about them pre-draft. And then you add in how much the Bucs like to blitz their linebackers. Dennis had actually decent success playing that role as well, with 16 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So definitely a player I'm interested in stashing on the taxi squad, usually as like a post-draft target for me. But if you want to add him near the end of a 5 or 6 round draft, 7 round draft, I don't hate it. But usually that's where I'm targeting him in, is after drafts.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think, like you said, those deeper drafts, 6, 7, 8 rounds, if you want, I've taken a few shots on him. And really, I mean, after, those guys that we liked, he's, one of the names that, you're going to be putting in your draft list that you're eyeing up. So no, I mean, the stats and the grades and stuff, I mean, the dude can play, and there is an opportunity. I know I said Levante David was old and everything, but he is, like you said, a goat. I hate to hate on him for his age because I'm old too, but he is, dude. You gotta love Levante David, and I think Dennis has a great opportunity to learn from him, and maybe latch on to something for next year. So good stuff, man. I like taking a shot at him as a stash if you got room on a deep taxi or something.
Yeah, it's a nice spot, and like you said, they might address the position next year. Who knows what they're doing, but they're kind of a rebuilding team. I don't know where they're at, like what their plan is going forward, but there's not a lot of great, like, kind of future pieces on that team right now. So it's very possible that they go the same route as, like the Rams or something, and just don't even touch the position. So we'll see. All right, last guy of the 10 that were first drafted here at the linebacker position was Henry To'o. Goes to the Houston Texans, 5th round pick out of Alabama, and another duck-sized horse to add to the Texans linebacker room and have to deal with here. That is a callback to last year's post-draft episode for anybody that missed that one. But I think Denzel Perryman and Christian Kirksey are probably the favorites to start in Houston, just kind of based on their experience in the league as the established starters. Although not like they're the best of the best in that category, so I wouldn't necessarily lock it in. That's just kind of my feeling on the situation is Perriman and Kirksey. And then you got to, like, Christian Harris, Corey Littleton, freaking Neville Hewitt, among other horselings who could all find their way onto the field at some point this season, whether it's, injury to fragile starters or limiting snaps of those poor performers from like those, mid starters, whoever it ends up being. So it's not a terrible spot for To'o, especially after, his Alabama brother, Christian Harris, was exceptionally bad last year. So maybe, old Hank here can impress the new coaching staff. And at the very least, pretty much all these other guys have contracts at the end of this season anyways. So contracts that end at the end of this season anyway. So not a bad player to take a shot on. I think kind of, again, late in drafts, post draft, a lot of the time is going to be the ideal spot for him is after rookie draft. So maybe more of a linebacker taxi squad stash for To'o, but not that I want to spend too many taxi squad spots on a linebacker. But if you need one, he's a possibility.
No, man, that's a great call. And I think your shout out on the Horselings call, that's fantastic. That's probably a top 10 animal combination call of all time in my books. Right. I would say. That's just good stuff, man. I'm right with you with To'o though. I don't see him making much of an impact early on in this year. When you look at early on in the year, when you look at their depth chart, like you said, they got the old vets and Perryman and Kirksey. You got a guy like Christian Harris. He struggled as a rookie. He's going to be eager to prove himself a little bit in year two. Obviously those guys are likely ahead of him. I do like the fact that D'Amico Ryans decided to draft To'o and see what he's got, I guess. And I do like the fact he comes from the SEC with a lot of experience, and you noted experience earlier in the show tonight. That experience is important, and he does bring that. He's got some other issues, but he is an experienced player in the biggest college conference, as everybody knows, with the SEC. I mean, there's a chance at the end of the year he gets some run. I think you alluded to that. If things aren't going well and they want to see what he can do, he could get out there and mix it up a little bit. Because like you mentioned, these vets are on like 1-year deals, and Houston's a rebuilding team. You don't foresee them. I think they're going to be better, but how much better? Who the hell knows? Right. But you'd think if things aren't going great, they might sneak him out there if they like what they're seeing in practice. And he brings his lunch pail and he's doing the Jack Campbell routine. He could sneak out there late in the year, and that makes him like a stash guy, like you said, for me, just in case, right? Don't stash a ton of linebackers that could be nothing, but he's one of the guys you might want to take a shot on.
Yeah, if you miss out on like a Servassier Dennis or one of these other guys, then that I don't mind taking a taxi squad spot for him if you have the room, but really just kind of hoping at that point, I think. So but that's the first 10 linebackers drafted. We both have a sleeper that we could talk about here. I guess since we're sticking with the order of when these guys were drafted, we could start things off with Owen Papo going to the Arizona Cardinals in the 5th round out of Auburn. What do you think? What do you like about Papo's situation in Arizona?
Yeah, he's a guy we covered pre-draft, and he ran the blazing 40. What was it, 4.39? And obviously got everybody's attention. The thing I like, it's a 5th round pick. It's great they drafted him. The thing I do like is the new staff there with
Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon, Jesus, Gannon and Rallis, I believe, is his DC, right. And which is his linebackers coach in Philly. So I like the fact that they decided to take him and bring him in, considering they're stuck with a bunch of holdovers right now that Arizona didn't know what the hell to do with. It seems like half the time, and then there is questions surrounding. What is Zaven Collins' role going to be? It's early and you don't want to buy into everything too much early, but they are talking about him possibly seeing time outside. I'd still hold hope for Zaven. I was a huge fan. I got, the tattoo. It's going to be there forever. I just hope it holds up. But, so those questions, and they brought in Kaiser White, who's a Gannon guy from last year, so they know what they got there. But I do like the fact that they decided to bring Papo in, and as far as a processor, I think he's got a ways to go, but they obviously see something they like in him, and that's that Gannon system. It provides some nice IDP production in Philly, and if they can harness the athleticism Papo has, and he's a guy that played at Auburn he was a contributor for 4 years. He's experienced. If they can get him to develop into what they're looking for, he's got a shot. And I like him as a possible stash guy too. If you got again, deep taxis and whatnot. So.
For sure. Yeah. That's pretty much the same things that I like about him as well. I mean, like you said, the new coaching staff, I think, really helps
Yeah.
because um, we don't know how they're going to view the guys that were already there. And
Mhm.
it sounds like they're already trying to move things around to find better fits for them. Like you said, Zaven Collins has been working out with the edge rushers, which also happens to be maybe a bigger and more important area of need for
Good
the
point.
Cardinals, right?
Yeah,
So
really good point.
yeah, so we'll see. I mean, they got Isaiah Simmons, who spent the majority of his snaps in the slot last year after working with the DBs last off season. So,
Mhm.
um, there's a lot of questions about these guys that were classified as linebackers in Arizona. I know Gannon brought Kaiser White with him from Philadelphia as well, and now they bring in Owen Papo as well, who both those guys maybe project a little bit more to an orthodox linebacker role than Collins or Simmons in 2023, but we'll see. It's still, like you said, very early in the offseason. This could all turn out to be smoke. But if not, Papo is certainly worth taking a shot on after drafts that maybe turns into something that could be fantasy relevant because it is a decent role for whoever ends up getting it as a starting linebacker in Arizona in Gannon's system. All right, here we go. Last guy. It's a sleeper, but he was one of
Yeah.
the favorites pre-draft. It is Ivan Pace Jr. Doesn't go. He was signed by the Minnesota Vikings
Such a
as a
beauty.
UDFA out of Cincinnati. Yeah, and I have a real serious bone to pick with the NFL on this
Mhm.
one. I mean, how I almost swore somehow. I haven't swore on this podcast. I almost did it. But how does Ivan Pace not get drafted? This is, to me,
Yeah.
is crazy. I mean, this is the NFL just being a bunch of sizists, right? Is that
It
a thing? I
is.
think
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I mean, it has to be the size because everything that he
Mhm.
put on tape showed that he could overcome that size. He was an excellent run defender. He did everything well as a blitzer, and he had some coverage skills as well. It was just that he was a smaller linebacker. So maybe that is it. Maybe there was something else going on, but I was pretty bummed that he didn't get drafted. And but this was the ideal landing spot for me when we did this pre-draft. I really liked him as a fit in Minnesota because he brings kind of everything that Brian Flores would want from his
Mhm.
linebackers. Like we said, excellent blitzer, maybe the best in this class among the linebackers, comfortable around the line of scrimmage despite his size. And then he could excel in man coverage as well. We saw that at the Senior Bowl in those
Yep.
one-on-one reps as well. So, the only problem is obviously that he went undrafted somehow, but it's not like UDFAs don't make an impact. We saw it last year from Jack Sanborn, and
Mhm.
even Jack Sanborn's new teammate, TJ Edwards, was a UDFA out of Wisconsin. So not impossible. So I don't know. I still really like the fit for Ivan Pace in Minnesota. I don't mind that he's a UDFA. It just means we're going to get him cheaper if you want to stash him on the taxi squad. I'm just not ready to announce the time of death on him just yet. Even with Jordan Hicks and Brian Asamoah and Troy Dye, I guess
Yeah.
there's opportunity for Pace to earn himself a roster spot on this team, and I think it starts there before we focus on him being like an IDP asset, just getting on the team and then becoming a starter. There's a path there in Minnesota.
Absolutely, man. I think you crushed it. And I couldn't agree more. I got a bone to pick with the NFL. I'm very disappointed that
Yeah.
they did not draft this guy. I know we were both just huge fans of his tape. It was just outstanding overall. I mean, like you said, there was even glimpses in man coverage in those one-on-one drills at the Senior Bowl, which are designed
Yeah.
for him to lose, and he still won. Those are
Yeah.
the toughest things to do, and he did it. But I mean, his tape is, as a blitzer, he was just tenacious with his timing, his burst. Is he sees everything well, gets to his spot, hits and wraps up. They're just sizes, man. It's got to be right. It's got to be
Yep.
the arm length and just the overall that compact small build.
Yeah.
Stout build, great
Right.
torso. I mean, best in the class easily. That mid
Easily
draft.
the best. Yeah.
I mean,
Just
that alone should
just
have got him on day
incredible.
2. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
I
incredible. Dude is a
I
beauty.
this is my vision board here basically for
God,
what I'm working towards with this the Ivan
it.
Pace crop top shots.
I'll be honest. It makes me want to work out, and
Yeah.
I don't like physical exercise at all. So he's an inspiration.
He's an
Um,
inspiration.
but yeah, I'm with you, man. I think there's a really good chance he makes the team. I do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for a UDFA chance,
Yeah.
because you look at, I had a note here. I said, because behind Jordan Hicks and Brian Asamoah is the mid Troy bros, Troy Reader and Troy Dye. I mean, not exciting, like, that's the only real depth behind those two guys. And, I think Pace should be pretty pissed off that the NFL passed on him. And you nailed it with the landing spot before the draft. And after him landing in that Flores aggressive scheme, I think fits him well.
Yeah.
And these other guys, the mid bros, they're whatever.
They're mid. That's what they are.
They're mid. Yeah. Just mid. So I mean, I don't know about you. I think I'm more apt to take a shot on Pace than like Ventrell Miller or Rigatoni or I don't think it's really even a question. I mean, it's like his odds to be relevant much more, even though he didn't get drafted. So
absolutely. I've definitely taken more shots on Ivan Pace than any of those guys after drafts. And the NFL's wrong a lot, but they're wrong on linebackers even more so, I find.
That's a good
point. Just trust in the talent. I think, like you said, there's a good chance that he could emerge there as a starter. So I like taking the shot. He costs basically nothing right now, so you may as well try it if you need someone, if you feel the way we do about the talent and the landing spot. Take a shot on him over the Ventrell Millers and Rigatoni Sewells of the world.
He's probably the primo Johnny the Greek price of a mouse click guy. Shout out Johnny, right? Because after your draft, people might see the draft cap of the other guys, and you can just go click, free agent ad.
Oh yeah,
put him on your taxi. So shout out Johnny. He's my price of a mouse click player of the linebacker class here.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And we'll get the hashtag going. Hashtag justice for Ivan Pace.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tonight it's gonna start trending as soon as we wrap this up.
Yeah. The YouTube crowds, they're gonna get in on it.
Yeah, they're going to come strong. We're going to take over. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, I could feel it. But there we have it. That is all of our rookie previews and reviews, pre-draft and post-draft, completely wrapped. I can't thank Joey the Tooth, John Glosser, and of course, Kyle Bellefeuil enough for doubling up with me on these episodes to do this every year. I absolutely love talking rookies and getting to chat with these fine gentlemen just makes it all the more better. So Kyle, truly, I can't thank you enough, man. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, man. And I really do, man. I really appreciate you asking me to come on and do these shows each year. I look forward to it. It's great to hang with you before the show and just, catch up and then dive into the fun stuff of the players we're going to talk about and stuff. Man, I really appreciate you, hitting me up and inviting me on each year. And you absolutely crushed it. Shout out to Johnny. John. Shout out Johnny the Greek again too. And can never give Johnny enough shout outs. Shout out to John Glosser and Joe. You guys, they crushed it as well. You guys nailed the defensive line and the safety shows. So those were fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's fun. It's always fun to talk rookies, especially so close to the draft. I know we're a little further out now, but it's a fun time of year, the off season, because mostly surrounding the excitement around rookies, but also because we get to talk to you and get you on here and get your insight and knowledge, which is elite. So I do really appreciate that, man.
I appreciate you saying that, man. I really do. Thanks.
No problem, buddy. Anytime. And as far as going forward here, please remind the good people where they can find you and your work.
Oh, right on. Yeah, you can find all my work over at footballguys.com. I had some stuff come out during the post-draft rookie season at its height. I had a few things come out. Been a little slow lately with content. Been pretty busy with other things here, but we'll ramp back up here in a little bit and start updating the ranks and putting some articles together. And I look forward to doing that. But you can find my work over there, and you can hit me up on Twitter at KBell54 anytime. Haven't been posting a lot, but I'm always hanging around if you have any questions, and I'm happy to help out if I can, man.
Nice. Yeah. And if anybody's going to complain about Kyle not being on Twitter very often, you could just blame these crazy baseball parents that are trying to fight him while he umpires games.
I can only take
putting
so
his
much.
Life on the line, man.
Yeah. It only takes so much, man.
Exactly. But yeah, appreciate it, buddy. Definitely go check out Kyle over at Football Guys. And then for me, everything I write up, is on pff.com. By the time most of you are listening to this, I'll have a 30 round offense plus IDP draft strategy walkthrough up on the site. So please check that out, as well as my quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, D-line, and defensive back tiers for the 2023 season, plus a bunch more of stuff coming soon. But yeah, next episode, we move off the rookies probably to talk some of the more known IDPs and focus in on the 2023 season with the amazing Tom Kislingberry. You will not want to miss that. So until then, thank you all for listening, and IDP out.